Welcome to the last of the Col-Hi Wildcats 1982 podcast, brought to you by Deets O' Man Productions.
Enjoy your youth, because it goes by quickly.
The grace of God supports you, and you're gonna be all right.
Seize every single moment because of this simple fact. You can't get more time.
To my high school self, I will say, get over yourself.
Life is a series of lessons. Some of them are far more expensive than others, right?
You are worth it. You are worth it. Don't ever doubt yourself.
Know it. Say it.
It's breaking us into this first.
Hopefully, from anybody.
Hey, this is Scott Townsend. Welcome back to the last of the Col-Hi Wildcats 1982 podcast. And today I have with me a special guest. I never thought I would be speaking to this person again, ever, really. You never want to go to the principal's office, but here we are. And he and I are in our own offices this time. It's Mr. Pannell. Mr. Pannell, how's it going?
Good, Scott. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. A little nervous, but I'll get over that.
You're the one asking the questions. You're not answering them. So.
I'm not the one on the hot seat, am I?
Okay, that's right.
So what's been going on? Catch us up. You know, the last since 82, that's 39 years. What's kind of give us a quick synopsis of what you've been up to?
Well, of course, after 82, we combined the schools, as you know, and I stayed at Bartlesville High School for 3 more years, and then went to the central office for 10 years as director of personnel first, and then after 1 year or 2 years, it was expanded to business and personnel. So I got even farther away from the kids. But I did that for 10 years and decided it was about time to do something else. And so I retired, was able to draw teacher retirement, and did a variety of things. And the last thing that I did starting in 2008 was we became managers at Tallgrass Estates in Bartlesville, and got to work with some of the parents of some of the kids that I'd had as a teacher and as a principal. Then my wife and I were co-managers there for a little over a year. And we decided to start drawing Social Security, or I decided, I guess. And started doing a thing called floating managers for this company that owned Tallgrass Estates Holiday Retirement. And we would travel when we wanted to, we were asked, to different communities. There were over 300 across the country, and work for managers who were on vacation, or maybe they were missing a set of managers. And we'd go work anywhere from a week to about 3 weeks. And we went to 23 different communities in 6 different states. And I got to travel and got paid for it, and got to see some of the places that we'd never seen before. And then in 2016, we decided that was enough. We'd been married 50 years.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
So we retired for the 3rd time again. So and ever since that time, we've just been going to grandkids' graduations and baseball games and all of their activities right now. We have 14 grandkids, 3 children, 14 grandkids.
Oh my gosh.
The oldest one's 26, and he lives in Chicago and works for JP Morgan up there. And we have another grandson, his brother is in the Air Force, and he's just passed his sergeant's test in the Air Force. And he's now in New Jersey working with some of the Afghanistan immigrants, taking them to and from the doctor's offices at Fort McGuire in New Jersey. The granddaughter just graduated from OSU. Our first grandson graduated from OSU. And then we have some kids in Branson and some in Spring, Texas. So we got places that we can go see. So that's basically keeping us busy, going to all kids' activities.
That's great. Well, if we could step back in time here, you've seen some of the episodes and kind of how we do this. How did you get started as principal of College High? What was your path to being principal?
Oh, that really is a long story. I mean, it's not very long in time-wise, but a lot of things happened that if one of them had not have happened, I wouldn't have been principal at College High. And one of them was that when I was a junior at College High, I wanted to be a pharmacist, I thought, and did some checking around, and because I was good in math and science and Latin. I was taking Latin, liked Latin. And the only school for pharmacy in Oklahoma was at Weatherford at Southwestern State. And well, that didn't excite me because I knew no one that was going to go to Southwestern State. And all of my friends were going to Oklahoma State. So I started switching gears a little bit. And I guess during my senior year, out at the beginning, I had a math teacher, Villa Fender, that I really enjoyed. She was never married, was in her late 50s, early 60s. And I liked math and was good at math. But because of her, I decided that I wanted to be a math teacher. And
so you went to College High?
Yes. Graduated in 1963, graduated in 1963. So I know all about College High. I went to all the basketball. I remember, gosh, when I was in grade school, went to football and basketball games. And Bobby Joe Green and David Baker and some of those that played football at Bartlesville a long time ago. Wow. But so I majored at OSU, majored in math, and started looking for jobs, of course, my senior year, not really looking, not applying for any, except in Denver. I did talk to them in Denver, got offered a job in Denver, and decided not to take them up on that after I checked into their school system a little bit, and was offered a job at Perry Junior High. But before that, I have a sister that lives in Elk City, Kansas, just west of Independence, and she was talking to her superintendent, and he was going to have a science opening that next year. So she called me and, hey, why don't you talk to him about that science opening, math and science? So I called him and went up and interviewed with him, was offered a contract there to teach in a town of about 500, had 357 kids in the school, K through 12, and was the only science teacher and taught geometry and algebra 2 as well, and stayed there for 2 years. And my dad was a mechanic, and he was working on John Haley's car one day, and Mr. Haley was principal at College High. And Mr. Haley was asking about me, what I was doing, and he told him and said, but he's thinking about leaving up there because the district is having problems. They're going to disband, he thinks. In fact, the superintendent had already resigned and some teachers had resigned. And so he said, have him give me a call. I'm going to have 2 openings at College High next year. Have him to call me. So I did, and I went down in March of 69 and interviewed with him and Earl Hammond, who was a superintendent, and they offered me a contract right then. So I signed on at College High and started teaching math in 69, 70. And I thought, hey, I've got to make, here I am teaching, the best high school in the state of Oklahoma, and teaching with the teachers that I had as a student. And I thought, hey, I've got it made. And after the first year, this Miss Fender retired. She had to. They had a rule that teachers had, if they were 65, they had to retire. They couldn't make any exceptions. And so there I taught 1 year, and Mr. Haley was planning on me taking her place, which I did. But he thought I'd have some more experience, and he was trying to get her to stay more years, a couple more years, but they wouldn't let her. But during that year, he called me down to his office one day, and he said, hey, the National Science Foundation is offering a summer sequential institute at the University of Oklahoma starting this next summer in 1970. I want you to apply. And I said, oh, I can't afford to go to school. He said, it's going to be paid for. You'll be getting a stipend. Your family will get a stipend. They'll pay your tuition. All you'll have will be housing. Well, that sounds like a deal to me. So I applied and was named an alternate. So I went in and told him that and said, no, that won't work. He wouldn't accept that. So he wrote a letter to the National Science Foundation and told them what they were doing and what are they going to do to get me in that institute. Well, I got in it. And so I was going to spend 4 years in getting my master's in 1973 in math. In the 1971, in the fall, Jim Morrill came to my classroom. I had first hour planning, and he came to my classroom, and I just knew he was going to ask me to cover a class for a teacher that was always late first hour. And but he didn't. And he said, Mr. Haley's going to retire next year in 1973. And I said, yeah, we all know that. And he said, well, I'm planning on, applying for the principal's job. And I said, well, we know that too. We expect you to get it. He said, well, I don't know whether I will or not, but if I do, what do you think about being my assistant? And I said, Jim, I don't have any thoughts about it. I've never thought about being a principal or assistant principal. I'm not even sure I could even get, be certified in time for that. And he said, well, check into it and, let me know what you think. So I checked and see how many hours I'd have to have in addition to my master's. I had no education hours there. And it was, I think, 11 hours to be certified, provisionally certified by 1973. So I checked with OU, and I could work in some education courses in each of the the summers, my 2 remaining summers. So I planned on doing that. And then I took an extension class through OSU, business or school law, and then took a talkback television class at OSU. So by 73, I had 11 hours plus my master's. And so I started as assistant principal in August of 1973. And I graduated at the end of July. That next Monday, I reported, and I thought to myself, now what do you do now? I'm assistant principal. What do I do? I've got 6 years teaching experience, and I'm assistant principal at the best high school. They're them all over again. As a teacher there and an assistant principal. So that goes well. I learned a lot from Jim. He was a great principal and a great man, and we became very close even afterwards. But then in 2 years, the assistant superintendent resigned, and Jim applied for it and got the job. And so he told me when he got to the job, and I said, yeah, what do I do now? And he said, I want you to apply for principal. And I said, Jim, I don't have the experience for it. He said, yes, you do. I said, you'll make it. So I applied for the principal's job, and not knowing, whether, what I was going to do. And I hadn't even got the assistant principal job down at all. And but I had every staff member but 2 wrote a letter supporting me to be principal. And I found out that 2 of those teachers, one of them was applying for the principal's job, and the other one, her husband, was applying. So, but then with all the teachers, I know all the teachers and they're supporting, I'll apply for it, and got the job. And so there, with 8 years experience, I became principal of College High School. Not only the principal, but the last principal.
So what was your first day like?
I have no idea, Scott. As principal, I have no idea what the first day was like.
Tell me, can you tell us what a typical day? What was the typical day for a principal?
No typical day. I mean, there were plans. Have maybe meetings, stuff, or maybe I didn't have a lot to do. Something always came up every day. Problem with the teacher, problem with students, problems with parents, staff members, something like that. There was not really a typical day. The best way for me to end, by the way, to end a day that was kind of a rough day would be go to a student activity. That was the way that I could relax after a trying day, was to see them be successful at football, basketball, band, plays, concerts, and that. That was the way that I really relaxed at the end of the day. And that kept me busy, just going to student activities, but not really a typical day that I could say that I would have, but it was always dealing with students, good and bad, dealing with coaches, good and bad, dealing with board members, well, not so much board members, but through the superintendent, and dealing with them and any problem that might occur. But basically just dealing with students.
How did you divide the responsibilities? There was principal, Mr. Pannell, and assistant principal Ben West, and then Malum's. Can't remember.
Well, the first ones at College High was there was just always one assistant before me. I was the last one assistant principal, and we had a dean of boys and a dean of girls who happened to be a counselor too. And Jim Morrill was telling me I guess it was after I was selected principal, he said, I've been thinking about, doing away with those dean positions, especially the counselors, because she can't discipline and be a counselor at the same time. And Jim Crouch, who was the dean of boys, was going to probably be retiring in a year. He said, what do you think about getting another assistant principal? So I had 2 assistants then. Frank Morrison was the assistant principal, and he was in charge of curriculum, that side of it, and the academics. And then Don Derrick, who was the football coach, he was the one that was in charge of student discipline and attendance. So that was the main deal. He was the ones in charge of student activities and this. And so that was my first 2 assistants. And then Ben West replaced Frank Morrison later on. And I had some other assistants. Don Derrick went to Central as assistant principal, and then left and went to Miami, Oklahoma as assistant superintendent up there. And then Bob Malins came late. He was the last one at College High.
Oh, okay.
The last vice principal. I was calling him vice principal and assistant principal.
now it seems like a lot of students up to this point on this show, and almost unanimously everyone speaks of the high standard of education that was at College High. Can you speak to that for a minute? And why was that? Why was that? I mean, it's just, it was amazing.
You know, that was my biggest challenge, Scott, was to maintain the high standard that Bartlesville schools, and, you know, all of Bartlesville schools, but College High, you know, in particular, because that's the last school that students would attend, you know, in Bartlesville. And it was high standards. I realized that as a student. And I realized the quality of teaching that I received, and the same teachers that I worked with as an administrator. And it's, you know, people have asked me that question before, you know, back then. Why is that? Bartlesville is so unique in Oklahoma. You know, it's a unique town. No other town in Oklahoma was like Bartlesville. It's different now, but no other town had an international company there, that headquartered there. Two of them, in fact, Phillips and City Service. And the people that the parents that we had, and that would be, you know, they'd be coming here from Paris, or coming from, you know, from London, or coming from foreign countries, or coming from Texas, you know, transferred back and forth. There was a quality of living that people demanded in Bartlesville. The arts, the entertainment that we had that no other town had, with the civic center that we had, and then the community center, and the ballet, the civic ballet program that we had at the Bartlesville Symphony Orchestra. Yeah. It just was, you know, very unique, and it was just something that was expected from the parents and through their students. So it was, I really contributed to Phillips and City Service is one reason, and not just the companies being here, but because of the standards that they set for their employees, and then the employees that they had coming here, and the expectations that we tried to maintain. You know, at one time, and I'm not going to compare, I could compare the academics then and what they are now, but I don't know that much about them now. But at one time, we had 12 national merit semifinalists. My senior year in 1963, we had 12 national merit semifinalists. And now if they have 2 or 3, they're doing well. And that's based upon the SAT test or the PSAT test that the students take. And that shows what type of students that we were getting because of the background from their parents. And I could give you name after name, you know, that you're talking to a lot of them right now.
Right.
You know, and that it was the expectation. They didn't expect anything less. And they wouldn't put up with anything less than that.
What was your main focus as principal of College High?
You know, that really is a good question, and it really is. And I don't know if I ever really thought about it back then, but I was asked that question by students, even for yearbook. But it really was to maintain that high standard, but more than just that, but to provide the environment that high school would be a fun place for kids, and not a joking place, not the prank type fun, but be a fun place for kids that they would enjoy it and also learn to the highest level, you know, that they could for their abilities, for it to be a happy place. I had a student on Facebook when I joined Facebook less than a year ago, and it's amazing how many students I had to contact me through that. But one of them said that you know, he did well in high school, but just it wasn't a very happy place. And I said, well, I take responsibility for that, because that was really one of my responsibilities, was for it to be a fun place, a happy place, a place that you enjoyed coming to, and didn't dread coming to school. And that's like with my classrooms. I want kids to laugh. When I was teaching, if the kids, every class, I wanted kids to laugh at least one time during that class. If it wasn't me, even I'd make a mistake, so they'd laugh at me. And I want them to look forward to coming to class. And they learn better that way. They'll learn better when you enjoy it.
Oh, that's great. I'd probably be the same way, because, you know, like I told you before this show, if we're laughing, telling stories, having a good time, then you know we're doing something right.
Oh yeah. I'll tell you, one of the things the kids will try to get me to do is talk about my college days, try to keep me from giving them a test or something, you know. So they'd ask me questions. What was this like and what was that like? And I remember one day it's in an Algebra 2 class, and I said, hey, you all can keep asking me questions you want to. We're going to have a pop quiz. If there's 5 minutes left, we're still going to have it. So they shut up real quick.
I was going to ask you about what are the upsides and downsides to today's education system. I don't know if you want to answer that or not, but what's your knowing what you knew then and seeing what you see now? It's to me, there's a huge difference. I'm not so sure it's a good difference. I don't know.
Yeah, I have a daughter that teaches math at the high school right now, Scott, and I'm not going to quote her or anything, but I mean, I keep informed a little bit of what's going on, but, and it's not so much the quality of education. It's all the restraints and the rules and the regulations that the state and other people are putting on the school systems, not just Bartlesville, but all across they don't have time much anymore. They've got all these other responsibilities they have and the laws that are involved with it. It's just the whole thing is different, and not just the quality of education. I think the teachers still trying as hard. They want kids to learn. They want kids to have fun, but it's just the general atmosphere or something, the attitude, I guess, towards public education. We're getting hit from all sides, from the conservative people and from the liberal people in Oklahoma. From the governor, school districts are getting hit. And a lot more private schools, charter schools that we have that we didn't have to worry about then. Just the rules. It was a good rule to put into place, but I was principal at the time that they had to, before you could suspend a student, you had to give them a hearing. An eventuality hearing, whatever it was called like that, a factual hearing, then make up the decision. Well, that year I had a student that I forgot what he did now, but he did something really bad. And I suspended him. And no questions, parents didn't question. I got a call the next day from the ACLU. And I tell you, it was Lou, I can't remember Lou's last name now, but he was a famous lawyer in Oklahoma. And he called and said something about you suspending him. And I said, yes. And here's what he did. He deserved to be. Yeah, I guess he cussed out Dean of Boys, but it's something he did. It was really bad and threatened to hit him. And I said he deserved to. So I'm not questioning whether it deserved to be hit or to be suspended. But did you give him a hearing? And I said, no, I didn't. He said, well, you should have. And I said, well, what do you suggest? He said, get him back into school, give him a hearing, and then kick his butt out. But that was the thing too, that even back then, we had to go through these, and it should be. Yeah. It shouldn't be allowed just to suspend students on the spur of the moment. That's not a fun thing to do. Never was, but it should be done with the students' best interest in mind, as well as the rest of the school.
What was the suspension made up of? A day, 2 days, or a week?
It depended on the whatever the student did. I can remember maybe one time that I suspended a student for the rest of the semester, and he pulled a knife on 3 boys over in the field house. And I called him over and talked to him, and he said, well, I was just defending myself. They were chasing me and I was defending myself. And I said, well, you still did you pull a knife on him? He said, yes, I did. So I called his mother and I said, I'm going to suspend him for the rest of the semester. And she understood. And I said, I don't think he was trying to hurt them. I really don't. I want to tell you that. But he did pull a knife. And she understood. And she said, let me ask you a question. Can he go to summer school and take the second semester of American history so he can graduate on time? And I said, I don't know. You call me the day before summer school starts and we'll talk about it. Thinking that she probably wouldn't, but she did. And I said, well, bring him up, let's talk. We talked and I let him into summer school. He made an A. And then like 3 or 4 years later, I got a call from the training officer at the Bartlesville Police Department. He had used me for a reference, applying to be a police officer.
Oh, me.
And I told him this story, and I said, "I'm telling you this not to get him in trouble, but tell you how he handled this situation." And I remember one time
a success story.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was, but it was. I think I can't remember if anybody, probably 3 days would be the longest. Because I suspended one student 3 days, I thought I was going to get beat up one time. I was talking to you about this last week, that a student had hit him down in the cafeteria. popped him in the mouth. But I mean, it broke his lip was busted. And Dean of Boys went down to get him, and he wouldn't come up, and he started cussing him out and all this. And I mean, just wouldn't come with him. So I said, we suspended him too. Well, here comes his dad. And what do you mean suspending me and suspending that other, used a bad name, that other student? I said, hey, he's not suspended for fighting. He was suspending him for what he did to the Dean of Boys. And he said, well, what if I came across this desk and hit you? What would you do? And I looked over to my side to see if the door was open over to the assistant principal's office. And I kind of rose up a little bit in my chair, ready to get up, really. And I said, hey, Bob, don't you dare threaten me. And he backed down. So, that's the only time, though, that I had maybe any adverse effect from it. Right. Other times there was, I always kept the students in mind as much as possible. There was one girl that I remember suspending. I was assistant principal at the time, suspending her a couple of times, maybe more than that. And towards the end of school, I came back to my office and there was a box of chocolate on my desk. And she had left that, and she said, to a dear friend, even though you don't understand me. So the way you treat them, even though you're still disciplining them, if you treat them with respect, they'll accept it.
Talk about the events leading up to 1982. College High on one side of town, Sooner on the other side of town. We've been doing this for years and years, and then seems like, I'm sure it wasn't all of a sudden, but at some point somebody had to say we should combine the two schools. What were the events that led up to that the combination?
The biggest event was the drop in enrollment right after Sooner was built. And the first senior class was 68, but they started in 66, 67. And they went from 9,200 enrollment K through 12 or pre-K through 12 to just over 6,000. And just in a few years kept dropping on that. So the enrollment.
Why was that?
Couple of things. City Service left Bartlesville, and I can't verify this, but I was told it was about 1,000 employees that they had and moved to Tulsa. And that was in the late 60s. Probably the pill had a lot to do with it because of the birth rate dropped in Bartlesville at that time. And that was a pretty easy way of contraception. And but for that reason, mainly the birth rate and then the loss of city service. And so that made it difficult. Each year became more and more difficult for students to get all the classes they wanted at both schools. Because some of them, the advanced classes, we could only offer, 1 time a day, 1 hour a day. And so they couldn't get all of them they wanted. If they were advanced students taking calculus or taking advanced AP chemistry or AP biology or AP, and all of these AP classes, I started while I was principal. The first one was calculus with John Barrett. But when you take students wanting all of those, and we're only offered 1 or 2 times a day, and if they were in band or in athletics, we just couldn't get everything done. And so that, for curriculum wise, and part of the reason was maybe the rivalry and how it was getting out of hand, but that wasn't the primary reason for doing it. I felt relieved that we wasn't going to have those problems before the football game each year, but it was mainly that the board started talking about that, I guess, probably in the early 70s.
Oh, really?
Because of the curriculum or the re-enrollment going down. But by the time I was assistant principal in 73, it was a lot of talk was going at that time, what they could do. And by the time Dan Nineswander became principal or superintendent and replaced Wayne Richardson, it really was a lot of talk by the Board of Education. In fact, they had decided they had to do something. And one of the things they did, they proposed a bond issue to build a building between Sooner and Madison and build a new high school there. And, you need 60% to pass the school bond issue. It's the only bond issues that takes 60%, take a super majority, and it got 40%.
Wow.
So people didn't want that. They didn't want to combine the schools. The vast majority of citizens didn't want to combine them. They realized that, but they felt the need to do that for the students' sake, for for curriculum. And so they came up with the idea of, well, maybe if we put, all the 11th and 12th at one building and the 9th and 10th at the other, could we do that? And since College High was a bigger building and it had the football field there, of course, they were going to do it at College High and have Sooner be the 9th and 10th grade. And the board, or at least the superintendent, asked Bill Bierschmidt, who was at Sooner, principal at Sooner, could those two schools handle that enrollment? And so Bill and I had to come up with a mock schedule, curriculum, to see if we could and have the number of students in the class, guess on that. We'd take two of our schedules, put them together. And we came back and said, yes, College High could handle them, but Sooner building would have to have 6 additional classrooms. And so the board made their decision, and after that, to go ahead and combine them in the 82-83 school year, and then start using the year 81-82 to put all that into place. They made the decision, I think it was in May of 1981, to do that. It wasn't popular back at that time. It really wasn't. But part of that problem, not a problem, but that first proposal was to close Central and move the Central students to the College High building. Well, that went over like a lead balloon. And I remember that we were at a meeting discussing that one time, and a man came up and he said, I can't believe you want to degrade that building by putting junior high students in. And I remember saying, hey, well, they deserve just as good a building as the senior high do. Yeah. But it really was. It was the College High building. It was a sacred building, Scott.
Thank you for listening to the last of the Col-Hi Wildcats 1982 podcast. And we'll be right back after this.
Pop's Daylight Donuts, man, they've got the best tasting donuts, sausage wraps, pastries in Northeast Oklahoma. And also, if you'll tell the staff there, hey, Scott Townsend said to give me a large spicy pig, they'll give you a free large spicy sausage wrap. But you have to tell them Scott Townsend sent you. So tell them, hey, Scott Townsend told me to tell you to give me a large spicy pig. So there's the offer. There's the call to action. So go to Pop's Daylight Donuts, say hi to Mark for me, and go to Pop's Daylight Donuts and get you some. The other sponsor is Cast-A-Fly Outdoor Adventures.
Adventure. That's where it begins. We look to create and document our moments in time while embracing the majestic wonder and beauty of the great outdoors. Our quest is to explore the back roads of the Ozarks, camping, fishing, and just getting lost. Refresh your spirit and join us on our next adventure.
Paul and his crew invite you to subscribe to the Cast-A-Fly Outdoor Adventures YouTube channel. What, just one question that popped up. I was thinking, so Sooner, did Sooner have their own football? They didn't have their own football.
No,
so how did they play football?
At Custer Stadium.
Okay. So on Friday nights, or did they play on the same night or different nights?
No, they had to get their schedule so that they were, when one was away, the other was home. And that wasn't that difficult. They went to football every 2 years. They scheduled 2 years at a time.
Okay.
And the home is reversed with each school. And so the two football coaches went to the same meeting, and then that way they could schedule. They're usually the same schools, each year, but they'd change some. But that wasn't that big of a problem doing that.
Okay, yeah.
But that meant Custer Stadium was used, and it was grass at that time, and with both bands on it, and that grass, it took a lot of punishment of doing that. I like grass fields anyway, but
yeah. What about let's shift gears on you just for a second. You said you liked your classes to have fun, and it sounds like, and I know we did have fun at College High. There's some pranks that went on. There's some traditions that went on. Talk about give us an idea. I know our graduating class gave you puzzle pieces, individuals, as we crossed the graduation platform. Did other classes do similar things? And
They did. I don't remember exactly what year. Well, it wasn't the first year. It wasn't 76, that class, maybe 77. And, we had our graduations down at the Adams building, in the Adams Gymnasium. And John Baird came up to me right before we marched on the stage, and he said, "They're going to be giving you marbles tonight. Be ready for it." And I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to be." I mean, I dreaded the whole commencement where this going to come through. And they gave me marbles that I made the mistake of putting them in my pocket.
your coat pocket?
Coat pocket, yes, suit pocket, And John, somebody brought me a box and put it on the back of the stage. So I started putting them in a box. And I don't know how many I got. It wasn't all of them, but it wasn't all of them, those marbles. And I was afraid. I didn't want to talk to anybody. And after it was over, Winston, the photographer, came up to me and said, "Where are those marbles?" And I said, "They're over here in the box. I want to take a picture of it, those marbles." I said, "No, that's too embarrassing." He said, "No, that was a good thing. That really meant that they liked you." I thought it meant they lost my they thought I'd lost my marbles and they were giving them back to me. But no, he said that's a good thing. So that started a tradition. And I didn't know what order it was, but I got rhinestones for the 75th graduating class, for Diamond Jubilee. They got a rhinestone necklace, broke them up in little pieces. I got quarters in 1980. I know that was 1980. I got quarters and four baseballs because we'd won the state championship in baseball, and 4 of the baseball players gave me autographed baseballs
in 80.
Yeah. And the last one through had a note and said, "Take your wife out to dinner." And then I got those rhinestones, got I guess at the College High, that was probably about it. 80, I guess it would have been, the first graduating class of Bartlesville High School was 1907. And so that would have been like maybe 81, I guess was probably what it was. 81 would have been the 75th. That's when I got the rhinestones. And then you all gave me Winston's came out and took a picture of College High. One of the students, I have no idea who he was, but he was in wood shop, and he took that picture and put it on some masonite, and then and cut them up into puzzle pieces. And I got every piece but one. There was one. I put it together and I had one missing piece. Oh, that's pretty good, out of all of those. Yeah. And Sooner started that tradition too, but I won't tell you what they gave the principals out there. Some of the things, especially the last year, especially in '82. It was bad. They were upset.
Oh, they were upset. So they were giving away. They were a little irritated, I guess, from having to come over to College High.
A commodity that was made by Spark.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
But then I got at the high school in 83, I got gummy bears for the Bruins.
Oh, yeah.
And then in 84, I got 84 cents, and all glued together. Had to break those apart, and that was for the Bruin tile that I was going to put in the next to the Wildcat tile. And then in 85, I got keys and a board, a big old board that's now in the Bartlesville History Museum in the city building. But it said class of 1985, unlocking doors to the future. And it had little hooks so I could hang up those keys on that door. The reason they did that, my secretary had collected keys, and she had a bunch in her office right outside of my office, and they thought they were my collections.
Oh.
But that still was neat. I mean, I liked the board was really good. And the last one, 2 students brought down the board. How they hid that up there in the stadium, I'll never know.
I know the students really enjoy doing stuff like that. It's simple, it's fun, and I'm sure like right now you're talking about it. I'm sure they would all like to hear that you still remember what they gave and what it was and how they did it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I could. The only one I remember talking to anybody ahead of time, Lynn Grigsby, who went to Sooner and in College High. She was in the '82 class, she and her mother Nancy were in my office talking, probably about the spirit committee, because Lynn chaired that year. But saying, "Hey, Lynn, by the way, what the class give me this year?" She said, "We haven't even talked about it." Lied to it just right in front of her mother. She knew what it was, but it was nice. They were all nothing was bad.
Yeah.
I really took it back the wrong way for the marbles, but it did start.
Yeah.
Oh, I know one thing no, I won't say that either. I won't say what center.
What you're saying is Mr. Beerschmidt was set for life, probably, or at least for a while.
But there was other things that was destructive that they gave. But
yeah, that's not cool.
But I don't know. It was different being a student at the only high school in town and coming back and teaching at the other. I mean, it being two high schools and the board had to deal with both of those. It was different.
Talk about the rivalry.
Other school districts learned from Bartlesville, like Broken Arrow.
Oh yeah.
Broken Arrow, they're by far the largest high school in the state of Oklahoma, by far. And they talked about several years ago of building a new high school, and all they had to say was, "No, look at Bartlesville. Look what it did to Bartlesville. It split the town apart." So those that did add schools added two. Edmond added Santa Fe and Edmond North at the same time. Norman, they added just one, Norman North, but Moore they have three high schools, because then you don't have that crosstown rivalry that just automatically makes. I mean, they were friends. The kids were friends during the year, during 51 months out of the year, but the week or the week and a half before the football game, they were mortal enemies.
Talk about how that started.
Well, College High started it. I wasn't there, so I don't have to take responsibility for it. But that was in the first football game in 67, 68. And the Sooner band was marching. They marched all the way around the practice field, not practice, but the football field and on the track. And before they got in the stands, and when they marched in front of the College High band, an egg came out of the College High section, not the band, came out onto the band. Next year, the eggs went the other way, but more than one. Yeah. It was an egg fight. And then it was more than an egg fight. It got out in the community. Things happening in the community, trees being cut down, the top of the pine tree being cut down at College High, the sign in front of Sooner being chainsawed down. The drinking tree that Sooner had out east of town was cut down. A bunch of kids would get out there and they called it their drinking tree. But it really got destructive. We were having the burning of a Spartan out in the parking lot one Thursday afternoon after school, and some guys came by in cars and drove around and flipped everybody off. And one guy said, "That did it." And they started running, and I yelled at them, and they looked at me and thought, "Well, what do I do?" Well, they decided to go chase them, and they chased them. They went up in Central's yard, the junior high's yard, speeding around town. Somebody that was very, very fortunate we didn't have somebody killed or even hurt,
Right.
Those things. So it got to be more than a rivalry. It got to the point that the town was split. That we were a town split by a river. And I had students come to me one time, and I don't know why they were telling me this, but they were out in Eastland Shopping Center at a store there, and they were told by the clerk there, "Why don't you all get back on your own side of town?" And when it got to that point, and the merchants downtown, they couldn't do anything. I mean, they couldn't do for one, you'd have to do for the other school. And the first year that the week after we combined the schools, I don't know how I did it, but I approached somebody downtown to see if the kids could use tempera paint and paint things on their store windows, and maybe we could have a block party. I called the mayor, or Mikulaki was a city manager at the time, and he had a 82 senior. I think he was an 82.
Yeah, Joe. Yeah, Joe.
Yeah. And got to be not friends. His wife taught, and he let us. We blocked off Johnstone between Frank Phillips and 4th Street and had a block party. They couldn't do that, with both schools. And So, but they had to be very, very careful. The emergency, but that one out in Eastland, I don't know what the kids were doing. They may have been causing trouble.
Yeah.
But when I said your own side of town, it was one town,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
so, and did they need a school at Sooner? Asked that question a lot, or, should have even built one? Probably not, if they knew what was going to happen 2 or 3 years later.
Mm-hmm.
But before Sooner was built, there were 2,000 students in the College High building, and it was designed for 1,000. Temporary classrooms, were brought in. I don't know if they were there in 80, well, they weren't there in 80 when you were there, but they were brought in the 60s. Had some temporary classrooms between the auditorium and the girls' gymnasium.
Oh, yeah.
Or the field, I guess the field house. Didn't have the girls. Yeah, the field house. There were some temporary classrooms, had 3 schedules. Students were coming at 7:30, and some started at 8:30, some 9:30. So something had to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Either add on to College High or build another school. And I guess I don't know what I want to use for that. The prestigious thing to do was to have 2 high schools. And so they went after 2 high schools. Had to have 3 bond issues before they could pass one to build student.
Oh, wow. Of all the, going back to the stunts and things, the puzzles and whatnot, what are some of the crazier stunts that the seniors pulled during school?
I don't want to talk about that. No, there were some crazy ones. There were some dangerous ones. The first one in '86, some kids, the good kids, the best kids in school, somehow built a paper airplane out of cardboard or wood or something, a big one, hoisted it up in that elm tree out in front of to the north of the school, and like it flew into the tree, and they had sayings on it. So I got to school that morning, and my phone's called, and a woman across the street over on that 16th Street, what in the heck is going on over there? There were kids out there at 6 o'clock this morning. And I told her what it was, and she didn't think it's a good idea. And I said, I think it's kind of cute. then when I got things like the class of 82 put a car into the foyer, and another class put some sand out there, and another class let some greased pigs go.
Wasn't that our class? I think now 82
I think
did
that
the
was
car.
82 really made a big deal of it, since they were going to be the last class, I think.
Right.
Yeah, but I got with those pigs though, they bought them, or they borrowed them from some pig farmer, I guess. And so I called Noel Kaiser, whose wife was a counselor at College High, and he raised pigs, and he came and picked them up and took them home. So they had to pay for those pigs. One of the pranks at Bartlesville High School was there. I got home one Sunday night pretty late. We'd been in Kansas at my sister's house, and superintendent was calling me. And he said, Dennis, he said, I want you to know that got some seniors that have got some tents set up in front of the school, and they're planning on spending the night. And the pastor at your church and some others, he said he's going to use that to use the pulpit to talk about that, how bad that is, and need you to get out there. So I'll go out there about midnight, and I called Frank Morrison, and he met me out there, and so did one of the board members who went to that same church. And there they were, good kids. I mean, the best kids in school.
Mm-hmm.
And we had tents, and they were going to set up there so the juniors think that, would be there when they got there. And they'd be there when the juniors got there in the morning. And so I was talking to them, and I told, I knew if I forced them to leave, could backfire on me. If I just said, get out of here, call the police, which I could have done. They were trespassing.
Yeah.
And I was scared enough or whatever, I don't know, but I didn't do that. I went out and was talking to the leaders and saying, hey guys, you really can't do this. I mean, it just looks real bad on the school and on you all. Oh man, we can control stuff. And I said, no, you can't. You can't control things. About that time, a student walked up with a can of beer in his hand. And I said, case closed. Poured the can of beer in the ground. I said, now get out of here. So I tell you what I'll do though. I'll tell you what, go home or go someplace, leave your tent set up. I'll meet, this was now about 1 o'clock in the morning. I'll meet you back here at 6 o'clock, and you can come back and sleep in your tents. I'll be in your tents when the juniors get here. And there was a handful of them that came back and did that. So
Yeah.
didn't get much sleep that night, but it was, they still were able to have their prank.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pranks didn't start with me.
Oh,
There were
no.
pranks before me. There was one they laughed about. They put tombstones out in front of the school
Oh my
and
God.
put different things on them about teachers.
Oh
you know,
man.
and put different sayings on them, cute things on them. So I know that they were pretty well intended. I know they were,
Yeah.
but I don't miss those pranks though.
Those were all kind of innocent. I know some of the graduates that I've spoke to on this program have all talked about how nice Bartlesville was, how safe a place it was growing up. Innocent fun. Kids are mischievous, yes, but there was no real, it's not like today. Like this morning in Russia, they had 8 students killed at a school shooting, and there's school shootings everywhere now, and that just was not a part of.
No,
you couldn't even fathom something like that back then.
No, we didn't have to worry about guns. The biggest thing we had was bomb threats.
Oh yeah.
We had a series of about 1 or 2 years that we would have those, and I probably came from students, to get out of school. But I would evacuate every time we had one. There was one I didn't. It's because it said it's in a locker. Because the bomb in the locker is going to go off at a certain time. So this was at Bartlesville High School. I don't think I had any at College High. I think it was all at Bartlesville High School. But I called the police. 2 of them came out, and I took one, and Don Derrick took the other one, and we opened every locker in the school. And we're looking for bombs. I'm sure we could have found other stuff if we were looking for it, but
right.
But we weren't. But so I'll tell you what, though, there were some classrooms that were open. The door was open. You talk about kids squirming. What are they doing out there? What are they doing out there? And I had somebody from the Nautilus came out and asked, what are we doing? And I said, Mr. Derrick and I are having a race to see who can open the most lockers. We didn't find anything.
Donnie Moreland was talking about they tapped into the speaker system or something.
Yes. Oh, that was just, I'm not sure that wasn't Butch that was a part of that. But I think it may have been. But they put it into a locker, but they got it from the balcony of the auditorium. Came in somehow and put a speaker, and they were saying it was recorded. Help! Get me out! Get me out! Now that's cute. Scared some kids to death. I think Butch may have been a part. I know maybe he may not have, but
probably.
I wouldn't put it past him. And maybe Donnie probably would have do that too. Donnie and I, Donnie and James and I had a special relationship. I won't go into why, but it involved James Jones.
Oh, James Jones,
yeah, and Donnie. We and we still do. We run into each other every once in a while. Of it, and Donnie always rubs my bald head, and that was nice too. I should have told Butch, hey Butch, didn't know you were, I'm 20 years older than you, and you didn't used to have bald head, but those were minor, but they were funny. Though I could laugh at that, and stuff. But Donnie and James and they know what it was about. I won't mention anybody's name, but it was about basketball, and I think part of that, the talks that we had there for a while, had a lot to do with close to winning the state championship that year in basketball, which we should have won.
Mm-hmm.
We should have won.
Couple of bad calls, was it, or something?
On the same play, we're ahead playing U.S. Grant in Oklahoma City, and in the auditorium or someplace in Oklahoma City, we were playing, and we have a 1-point lead with 5 seconds to go in the game. And I'm sitting there, and I think we're going to the state champ. We're going to be in the state championship game next. Couldn't believe that. And the guy throws a length of the court pass. David Hayes is down there for College High, and the guy pushes off on him. It's obvious that he pushes off, catches the ball, clear shot, and makes it. It took more than 5 seconds for that ball to be thrown and to go the length of the court. So it violated the 5-second rule. and it violated, and we pushed off. And Donnie and James will back me on that. So,
Donnie actually mentioned that on his interview.
did he really? Okay.
Yeah, his story matches yours perfect.
But you know, they were 14-14 that year. They did not have a winning season, and if they hadn't have won the regionals, you know, and the going to the state championship, they wouldn't have had an even record.
Yeah.
So, but it was I saw some things happen to the team about that time. I remember in the area tournament, we'd just beat somebody, small school, and Salisaw Black Diamonds were playing, and they had a really good team. And Ken Bruno was over there by himself, and he's saying, "There ain't no way." I said, "What are you talking about, Ken?" He said, "There ain't no way we can beat them." And because the way they were playing, and because we had a kind of a slow down, Henry Iba type, basketball team, and that was Ken Bruno's style, and it worked. But against the team, you know that, but Ken backdoored them the whole game and scored 88 points against that team and beat them.
Wow.
And, yeah. And so, but I think some things that I don't know. That was a special basketball team. You know that just because of I guess the friendship and stuff that maybe I had more with some of the players there than I did with the other years. I always had good relationship with the players. I'd always went into locker rooms before a football game or basketball and go to the out of town games. I know the kids realized they knew I was.
That's cool.
And I went because I liked it. I mean, that was enjoying to me. But the kids deserve to have teachers or something like that, especially out of town.
There was the baseball 80.
Yep.
There was basketball. Almost got that one in 82. Football. What was football like during those?
No, we never.
years?
The closest that we ever came to winning state championship in football was in 85. And or 84, really, in the class of 84, 85. And we should have been in there, and we got beat by Booker T. Washington on a miscue by our safety. And it was tied, and he turned the wrong way and if he just tackled the guy, would have gone into overtime, and we had it on Booker T. We would have beat him in overtime. But we had 4 players, that year that went to D1 football. Mitch Nash went to OSU, got to play between Thurman Thomas and Barry Sanders. That was
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, Mike Wise went to OU, the starting center his last year. Ricky Page went to Wichita State, and they dropped football while he was there. And Darren Worrell went to Arkansas. And so that was unusual to have 4 D1 players in football for Bartlesville. But we had some good teams in '67. I wasn't there at the time.
Yeah.
But we had some good teams. But the basketball then in '67, that was a good team. Not a lot of talent, but they won the state championship just with 2 losses. I was a senior at OSU at that time, and they had the regionals in Stillwater, so I got to see both regional games and went over to Tulsa for the 3 state games. When they played Ponca City, I told I was married that year and told my wife, "Let's drive up. They had a good team. Let's drive up and watch them play Ponca City." Well, we did, and they got beat. But they did. They had a really good team. Scott Martin was one of the leaders. He was just a junior, but he played at OU. In fact, he was made the All-American team for under 6 feet tall players, or whatever they called it. But on that,
Did in the foyer shift gears here on you just for a second? In the foyer, we had the Wildcat inlaid in the floor, and the Bruin. Is it still there?
Nope. They're both gone.
They're both gone.
What I've been told, they're both gone.
Huh.
Yep. And I didn't know that. They didn't ask my permission. I was gone from the school district. I don't know who was there at the time, what decision was made on doing it. But they remodeled it when they did all the additions and stuff, and they made the auditorium into the library, which was good.
Yeah.
That was a very good move.
Yeah.
Auditorium wise too, and built a new auditorium. The gymnasium was much needed. I mean, we packed that 1,000-seat gymnasium at College High and Bartlesville High School. We really packed it. We had some good basketball teams in the '90s in Bartlesville with that old gym. But Yeah, and they added the science wing and did a lot of other things when they moved to 9th and 10th grade there, had to do some stuff. But
Right.
great facilities now.
Yeah, they are.
I would have loved to have had those, Scott.
Yeah. It's a beautiful building. I drive by it almost every day. I don't know. What would you like to say to the last graduating class of College High 1982 as we kind of wrap up this episode?
That was probably the busiest year that I've ever had as principal, because not only did I have, work about, having the class, the last class at College High, but getting prepared for the first class at Bartlesville High School, and getting everything ready, the staffing, the scheduling, get all that done. And we had Bill Bierschmidt and I met daily, just about daily, to work together. And we did. We worked very closely together to get that done. Working with a spirit committee. There was 19 students and 19 adults, kids from College High and kids from Sooner, and parents, and had Lynn Grigsby chaired it, and had a kid from Sooner and a kid from College High were co-chairs. And they decided things like the colors and the mascots to present to the student bodies to vote on, design the letter jackets, band uniforms, all the stuff like that we call, the spirit committee. And that was fun. That was fun in doing that. And the kids ruled on that committee. That, and then we sent each teacher a choice where they'd like to go to the high school or the mid-high. And we get about 94% of the teachers got their first choice. And so, which was good in doing the staffing. But getting ready, just the idea of getting ready for all of that, and then still maintaining, the class of 82. But it will always have a special place because it was the last class, and I'm a Wildcat. I'll always be a Wildcat. Even though I'm part Bruin, I'll always be a Wildcat. My wife graduated from there. My sister graduated from there. I had a cousin that graduated from College High in '56. And so went to basketball and football games there when I was in grade school. And but it'll always have a special place. And I've got, and those that I see here in town, they've got a special place in my heart as well. Always will have.
Right. Well, I know from speaking for the class of 82, we appreciate everything that you do, everything that you did. Thanks for providing us with a great, safe place to learn and have fun and play sports. And that's a pivotal time in everybody's life, and you guys did a really super job. That there's more than we'll ever know that you guys did, but we appreciate your service to Bartlesville and to the students, particularly those of us from the class of 82.
Good, thank you. I asked myself the question, what was the biggest mistake I ever made in education? I've been told, or I guess I was told that, but that, and probably the biggest mistake was getting out of teaching. Second biggest mistake was leaving the principal's office because I left kids. When I left, when I went to central office, I left kids.
Yeah,
they didn't know me from Sikkim. My wife didn't like that. She really did, because she liked we'd go to the mall or go places and people would recognize me, and that was kind of neat in a way. But it did. I got away from the kids. When I got away from the kids, it just wasn't near as much fun as it was before. Yeah. And so the class of 82 and the class of 85 both will always be special classes, just because and 76, the first one as principal. But I guess they all will. They all had their goods and their bads, and some of the things run together, which one it was, except I'll always remember 82 and 85 because those were the last.
Right. Well, if there's a reunion next year, you're invited.
If I'm alive. Yeah, if I'm alive.
Oh man.
I did go to one. I went to the class of 73, the last year that I taught. Met some of them at the high school, and that was neat to see some of those after. That was their 45th, so that was in the 45th one. So and I still, when I saw him, remember one of them that invited me. I still remember him. We became really good friends, and he lived close to where my parents lived, and so would even see him there. But now he lives out in Virginia, and he's an OU fan. But Can't help that. I'm an
Right.
OU grad too, but always a cowboy at heart.
Yeah, me too. Well, Mr. Pannell, thanks for your time. Thanks for regaling us with stories and kind of some history there with College High and the class of '82. And you're welcome back anytime.
But thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me and asking me. Really do.
So for Mr. Pannell, this is Scott Townsend. Thanks for watching, listening to the last of the Col-Hi Wildcats 1982 podcast. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you later.
The Last of the Col-Hi Wildcats 1982 podcast is a Dietzo Man production. For more episodes, visit the Last of the Col-Hi Wildcats 1982 YouTube channel, listen on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.